This is Jason with Chicago News. This week we're reviewing the big boy Lexus SUV, the LX570. We've talked about it before with Lexus and Toyota and this grille situation, but they just keep getting bigger and bigger. It certainly strikes an imposing form when it's going down the road. You know that this is a Lexus, but you know, this really, to me, doesn't look all that good. When you look at the design around the side, you really see the roots of the Toyota Land Cruiser here. One of the things that bugs me about the design is how far set in these rear wheels are. The track looks narrow based on the width of the vehicle, and it just looks like it would be a top-heavy, a little bit unstable, and it actually does feel that way when you drive it as well. Over the years, Toyota and Lexus have been adding on to what is essentially the same body-on-frame design. So the body itself is kind of dated at this point, and they keep tacking things on, which is why these taillights kind of stick out here. Again, there's a couple angles that look really good here. It's definitely a very striking design. It's just very polarizing whether you like it or not. There's definitely no doubt about the luxury side of this luxury SUV. Really comfortable seats, really quiet interior. Everything operates really smoothly. The materials are great. You know, I will say though, the one gripe I always have in a Toyota or a Lexus is the lower part of the door panel is always this thin plastic that you can hear it, how thin it is just by knocking on it. And in a vehicle that costs this much, you want something a little bit more substantial there. There's also no mistaking that you're in a Lexus here. Not only just the material choices, the way everything's put together, but even the color choices. This sort of brownish beige, the lighter beige on the bottom, the wood choices, all of these colors really are the Lexus color palette. Like, you can imagine a Lexus when they first came out having the same colors and the same treatments. Now, they've obviously modernized over the years, and this has the most modern infotainment system of any Lexus to date. You've got this 12.3-inch widescreen up here. Unfortunately, though, it's controlled by this center touchpad, which Toyota uses, and it kind of sounds like a slot machine, which, again, there's certain elements of this that feel cheaper than the price would lead you to believe, and this control system is one of them. It's a little clunky, hard to use. Plenty of features involved here, but the interface and the control system, this center trackpad, not good. Now, as far as driving dynamics go, we've got a 5.7 liter V8. This newest version has the 8-speed automatic transmission, but it still feels almost like a 6-speed with just a couple of taller gears added at the higher speeds. It still feels around town like it has to hunt for a gear and does several downshifts when you press the gas down. It doesn't feel seamless. It doesn't really feel refined. You know, that refinement is really what you're looking for in a luxury vehicle that you can spend this much money on. And the dash here, while the controls and dials look nice enough, there's a very Toyota feel to this, and you have all of these green warning lights for the parking system, blind spot monitors, lane assist. All of these things show up on the dashboard with these, I'm sorry to say it, cheap feeling lights, and it really doesn't add to the refinement or the luxury here. There's no real reason why you need all these indicators anyway to tell you these systems are on. They can just be on, and they could be, you know, in the center LCD that it tells you whether you're turning them on and off, and then that message goes away. A lot of the control systems in here for the audio, the climate, and the suspension settings are really convenient here in the center console. So hats off for having all of the conventional controls available still. Even though there's this touchscreen, you've got all your climate control settings, you've got radio settings here, you've even got a tuner knob, which is basically gone in just about every car. You know, this system actually is a good throwback. This is something that you kind of miss in a lot of vehicles these days. This is just a small thing, but the wood that they've chosen for the dash and the wood on the steering wheel, they're a little off from each other, not just in tone, but in grain. And again, it's a small thing, but when you're paying this much money, you don't want to have small concerns like that. Driving wise, one of the bigger complaints that we have is this turning radius and the way the steering gets heavy as you turn around. You know, the all-wheel drive system doesn't seem to cope well with tight turning radiuses. And while there's a lot of off-road settings here, I don't really think very many LX570 owners are going to be taking these off-road. Let's see what this 380 horsepower can do. You know, it sounds great. it feels okay off the line, but this is over 6,000 pounds of SUV, and frankly 3 tons is a lot of weight for 380 horsepower to carry around. It also kind of suffers in towing capacity. It's rated to tow 7,000, but I've heard that it just can't get out of its own way if you try to put that much weight on it. So, you know, it's a towing capacity on paper, but in real life it doesn't really work that well. Another odd thing about this Lexus is the addition of these paddle shifters. Now, I'm an enthusiast. I love performance driving, but nobody buys a full-size SUV to switch it into manual mode and use the paddle shifters. I don't think anyone is ever going to use these other than a journalist testing it out. I don't see why they added this feature. It doesn't fit with the car. Let's face it, when you own one of these, you're not going to be driving around by yourself. You're going to have a bunch of people in the car with you. And when you do that, this seat right now is all the way down on the floor. I still am a little bit limited on headroom. Part of the problem is when you put the seat all the way down, you lose actual foot room in the back. So your backseat passenger, or the middle row passenger, kind of has less space because of that. And one of the reasons for that is this is a body on frame construction instead of a unibody. So there's a ladder frame underneath this that the body sits on top of. It really limits the headroom inside here. It's very much a continuation of the original Land Cruiser, which is what this is based off of, the Toyota Land Cruiser. And there's a rich history with the Land Cruiser with off-road capability. It's kind of a cult vehicle for off-road enthusiasts, but over the years it's really just gotten heavier. It's gotten less capable off-road, more capable on-road, and this is really the height of that because this is so heavy and burdensome and laden with features, you're really never going to want to take it off-road. And the addition of all those features also just keeps adding up on the price, and this that we're riding in right now is $99,000 sticker price. And while I understand this is an extremely nice luxury vehicle, tons of space, beautiful finishes, I get it, it's not supposed to be cheap, but there's so many competitors out there that give you better value, $80,000, that can give you just as much or even more than this. You know, this has obviously a bunch of active safety features. You've got collision avoidance braking, you've got lane assist, all of these things, but it's not an active system. What that means is it won't brake for you gently. It's going to do only a panic stop, whereas a lot of the other competitors have, you know, systems that you can use in the city and almost drive autonomously. There's a lot missing here, which would be excusable if it wasn't the most expensive one in the market. Lexus is all about luxury, and when you're inside this LX570, you definitely feel that. The seats are extremely comfortable, the materials that are chosen are great. It's a bit of a dated vehicle that's quite a lot heavier and more sluggish than some of its competitors. When you combine that with the fact that this is essentially an older Toyota dressed up in newer clothes, and this is kind of a miss for us.